Hello and welcome, my little cherubs. Today I am here to explain another amazing Greek myth in my quest to encyclopedialize Greek legends. Just by the way, this is part 2 to my last video about Sisyphus, because the main character of this video, Bellerophon, is Sisyphus's grandson. But missing that video shouldn't have too much of an effect. Let's start with the little tyke's parents. Bellerophon's mom, Eurynome, was married to Glaucus. They were both of royalty in the Corinth area. Glaucus was the son of Sisyphus. You may have heard of him, either in passing or because I just said his name several times. Sisyphus really wanted his son to have a good wife. At first, he tried to marry his son to a girl named Mestra. She had a very sad life. You see, her dad was not very nice to Demeter, the goddess of agriculture. So Demeter cursed him to have insatiable hunger. And despite being a king, he still needed money to feed his hunger. He would repeat the process of getting the suitor, making them give a down payment on his daughter, and run away with the money. Oh, and she could also shapeshift into many different animals, which made it really easy to run away and scam them. Anyways, Glaucus was one of these poor suckers. Mestra eventually had a long-term relationship with Poseidon, though. Eventually, Glaucus found Eurynome, and they married and had a beautiful baby boy, Bellerophon. But wait a minute. Remember how I said Glaucus was the son of Sisyphus? Well, as punishment, Sisyphus not only had to roll a big rock, which of course you would know if you actually watched the last video. Go do that, now, or else I will say mean words. And if you've already watched the video, I'm sorry for being so threatening. Anyways, the other part of the prophecy which I just gaslighted you into thinking that I said in the last video was that he was not allowed to pass down his DNA. It was illegal. And of course this would later extend to Glaucus, who died in a chariot racing accident. But if Glaucus wasn't the father of Bellerophon, then who was? Well, it was Poseidon, who cucked Glaucus for a second time. Bellerophon was a nice young man. He was a bit gullible and dumb, but he was a nice boy and wouldn't hurt a fly. The person he loved most was his half-brother Deliades, who had the same mother as him, and whose father was Glaucus. Yeah, you can probably see where this is going. One day, Bellerophon was sparring with his brother Deliades, when whoops, the blade slipped and Bellerophon accidentally killed his brother. Oopsie poopsie. So Bellerophon got exiled for this fucky wucky. Oh, and by the way, I did lie to you. Bellerophon's name was not Bellerophon, it was actually Hipponuus. He's called Bellerophon, which is actually badass as frick. It means Slayer of Bellerus. Nobody knows who Bellerus really was, but I like to think that while Bellerophon was looking for refuge, one day he got drunk and killed some guy. Anywho, unfortunately, he was sentenced to exile to serve King Protus of Tiryns. On his way there, a sage told him that he would need Pegasus, the flying horse, and that he would need to talk with Athena about it. One evening, on his way to Tiryns, Bellerophon saw a temple to Athena, and spent the night there. In the middle of the night, he awoke to Athena's telling him, "Psst, psst, hey, follow me." Obviously, he did as the goddess instructed, and followed her to a spring where the majestic horsey was drinking from. She gave him a magical bridle and was like, "Alright champ, good luck," and then promptly disappeared. Obviously, Pegasus knew he was there, being a god and all, and let Bellerophon tame him. With this bridle, Bellerophon finally figured out how the horsey moves, and thus knowing how to control Pegasus, he flew to Tiryns. Luckily, King Protus was a really nice guy and pardoned him. But slight problem. When he got there, the queen really liked him. Was super horny for him. When Queen Antea made a move on him, he rejected her, in part due to being a base sigma, as well as knowing bro code. Now here's where the second problem arises. You see, Antea was a real spiteful poo-poo face. And since he rejected her, she was like, "I never wanted you anyways." So she sauntered on to King Protus and told him that he tried to rap her. Not cool. What the heck? Protus was understandably upset. But he didn't want to kill his guests, since that was frowned upon. So he did what all rich people do. He outsourced the dirty work. He sent Bellerophon to Antea's dad with a sealed letter basically saying to get Bellerophon killed. Thing was, his father-in-law, Iobates, welcomed Bellerophon with open arms, and they feasted for 9 days. When Iobates finally got around to reading the note, he was really reluctant to kill Bellerophon because Bellerophon rizzed him up with his charming nature. Regardless, he sent Bellerophon to kill the Chimera. Now the Chimera was really scary. It was a fire-breathing lion with a goat head on its back, and its tail was a venomous, acidic snake, and it came straight from hell. And its father was Typhon the Godslayer, and Cerberus and the Hydra were its siblings. Yeah, not a good situation to be in. Thing was, Bellerophon had a trick up his sleeveless toga. Yeah, remember that magical flying horse god I talked about 2 minutes ago? That. With Pegasus, Bellerophon had a chance, and he also received some guidance from Athena saying, hey, you should probably kill it from above, which was exceedingly obvious because how else are you going to kill it? But she did actually give him a useful hint. Apparently, the Chimera was also radioactive, so Bellerophon had to kill it with molten lead. Sounds reasonable. So what Bellerophon did was he chucked a lead spear into its mouth. Naturally, the Chimera tried to incinerate it to destroy it, but the stinky breath melted the lead, and whoops, it just inhaled the lead and died. Iobates saw how cool he was and thought to himself, wow, he did that pretty easily. I wonder what I can make him do next. So, King Iobates made him fight a bunch of warriors solemnly, who were threatening Iobates' kingdom. Bellerophon did the natural thing and dropped massive boulders on them, and then did the same to a bunch of Amazon warriors. I think this might be like ancient fan service about Sisyphus or something, since, obviously Sisyphus, his grandfather, was cursed to roll a boulder for all of eternity. Anywho, he then had to go kill a pirate named Chimaris. On his way, he was ambushed several times, but managed to get the job done. And it turns out all those assassination attempts were orchestrated by Iobates. At this point, Iobates was really annoyed, because like Protus, he fell hook, line, and sinker for the rape story. So he wanted Bellerophon dead. Exasperated, he sent a bunch of palace guards after Bellerophon. Poseidon was not happy, so he flooded the city as Bellerophon passed. As he got close, to protect the castle, a bunch of women went to the entrance he was going to and undressed to be human shields, which is the craziest tactic I've ever heard of. And it worked. Bellerophon, ever the gentleman, refused to pass. And, of course, definitely not because boobies terrified him. Upon seeing this event, after blowing a load, Iobates realized that, oh, there's no way this guy is a rapist, and then made up with Bellerophon, showed him the letter, gave Bellerophon half the kingdom, let him marry his other daughter Philone, and everyone lived happily ever after, except Antea. Wait, why isn't the video ending? Why are we still here? Well, dear viewer, that's because the video isn't over. Duh. This is a Greek story after all. Of course the ending's gonna be terrible. So, despite having children and a happy life, Bellerophon failed to be content. As his fame grew, his hubris did too. So, he decided to call Pegasus up for one final hurrah, and fly up to Mount Olympus. Zeus took notice of this as he was going up, and didn't like what he was seeing, so he sent a fly. Yes, a fly. And it agitated Pegasus so much that Bellerophon was shaken off. Now you'd think Pegasus would notice and save him, noticing that 150 pounds on his back was alleviated, but apparently not. So Pegasus made it to Olympus, but Bellerophon did not. Was Bellerophon dead? No, he fell into a thorn bush, which not only somehow saved him, but also blinded him. I am not sure of the physics of that, but whatever. He's blind. Let's just go with that. Out of shame, he never returned to his kingdom. He wandered alone, blind and miserable, until he died. And that is where our story ends.